This is something that I had no idea about until I was doing research for this podcast. But apparently, back in the days in the NFL, if two teams had an identical record, the tiebreaker in the draft, instead of strength of schedule or head to head or whatever it is, was determined by a literal coin flip. I know the NBA used to do this back in the day as well. So apparently, I believe it was 1970, Terry Bradshaw was the number one pick, and the Bears and the Steelers had an identical 1-13 record. The Bears had beaten the Steelers that year, so the Steelers should have had the pick anyway, according to the tiebreaker rules. But anyway, they did a coin flip for the rights to draft Terry Bradshaw. And of course, as we all know, the Steelers won that flip, drafted Terry Bradshaw. And I think not only is this a huge Bears what if, but it's just a huge what if in NFL history. Like, do we still get the Steel Curtain dynasty? Do we still get those legendary Steelers teams where they won 4 Super Bowls in the 70s? But for the Bears, a team that has struggled probably since, I don't know, Sid Luckman or something, to have a great quarterback. I don't want to say above average, but a great quarterback. They would have gotten one, in the 1970s. And who would have thought that a guy from Louisiana would have been a perfect, tough, cold weather guy, because he did well in Pittsburgh, would have done probably just as well in Chicago. And when I'm just looking back at his numbers, I mean, just kind of an aside, but his numbers are hilarious. Like, he led the league at one point with 17 touchdowns. He led the league with 3,700 yards at some point, and for his career, he has 212 touchdowns and 210 interceptions. But it's just kind of a mark of the times, I should say. And I also found that the Bears have not had an All-Pro quarterback since the AFL-NFL merger. So with one coin flip, they would have checked all those boxes. Maybe not a 4,000-yard quarterback, but they would have gotten an All-Pro, Hall of Fame, legendary quarterback who was incredible for the era that he was playing. And did you know about this coin flip?
I did know about the coin flip. Yeah. Of course, I haven't studied this too much. My understanding of Terry Bradshaw was that he was a good quarterback on great defensive teams, much like my favorite Jim McMahon. He was just, Terry Bradshaw has 4 Super Bowls. Don't get me wrong. He's Jim McMahon here, Terry Bradshaw here. But, I think the biggest problem the Bears had at the time, the problem they still have, but back then the problem was the offensive line. I think they had a notoriously bad offensive line throughout the 70s, and they had some quarterbacks like Vince Evans and Bob Avonlea that had some talent but never really amounted to much. I think the biggest problem the Bears have is that they're not owned by football people. George Halas being the exception, but so it wasn't so much a problem then as it is now. So I'm kind of getting off track here.
So you're saying that Terry Bradshaw, I think, he's not the same guy in Chicago, basically?
I think quarterbacks by and large are a product of the team that they're on. And if you put Terry Bradshaw on a bad team, I think you get a quarterback that may not be in the Hall of Fame. He might have made a Pro Bowl or All Pro. I don't even know if they had Pro Bowls in the early 70s, but sure they did. Okay. But that would probably be my take.
Okay. I think that's fair. I mean, I think it might be a little dismissive of Bradshaw. I'm sure he gets that all the time because he did play on, these incredible teams. But to be fair to him, the Steelers were probably one of the worst teams in the league, in the 60s. And, yeah, exactly. And for a long time, they were kind of a joke of a franchise until those Terry Bradshaw, Mean Joe Green, all those guys. So, it's
Bradshaw did throw a lot of interceptions. I was going to make reference because I thought Bradshaw, I was wrong because you just proved me wrong on the stats that you read off, but I was thinking that he finished his career with more interceptions than touchdowns, but it was close.
You might be right. I should probably double check this because I was working on this pretty late last night. So maybe it was.
I'll defer to you. I think you're probably the one that's right, but it was close, and that's like Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to judge it by today's standards because, like you said, it was such a different game. A lot of times,
Yeah.
quarterbacks throughout the 80s, anyways, successful season was 2,700 yards. You know,
Hmm.
I mean, you had the Dan Marinos that were hitting 3,000, but it, it, it was a run first league.
Yeah.
Thank goodness for the Steelers. They went out. They eventually got Franco Harris.
Hmm.
And no, Terry Bradshaw. I'm sorry to any Steelers fans. I do not mean to be dismissive of Terry Bradshaw. He is a legendary quarterback.
Yeah.
I do feel like you put him on a team like the Bears that did not progress as quickly as the Steelers did, and maybe the
Sure.
Steelers progressed because of Bradshaw. Devil's advocate to my argument, but
Sure.
it's I'm not sure he was the difference maker, I guess is where I was going.
It's totally fair. And I also found out that they won a coin flip in the 1975 draft for the right to draft Walter Payton. So I guess, yeah,
Yes,
you win some, you lose some. You end up with
those coin
you know,
flips.
yeah, exactly right.